Welcome to Comedians Conquering Climate Change, where we solve climate change using only comedians in 20 minutes. My name is Esteban, I am your host, and today we aren't just giving you things that you could do, we're providing and talking about this framework for how to think about how we can affect our communities and the world positively. Teach a man to fish, they will solve climate change. Get ready, we've got an amazing guest host, we've got some fun headlines, we got an incredible game, we're gonna get into it. This is Comedians Conquering Climate Change, a project from the nonprofit Generation 180. Hey, today we're talking about where to begin in your personal journey in making a difference against climate change. If you're like, yeah, I want to continue living on this earth and it should be good, but everything feels big and overwhelming, we got you. And by we, I mean me and this incredible guest host, comedian MK Paulsen. He's originally from a small town in Texas. MK has performed at numerous festivals across the country, including the Moon Tower Comedy Festival, the Bridgetown Comedy Festival, and he's been seen on the docuseries Inside Jokes on Amazon Prime. He's performed in places like AT&T Stadium, and right now on this podcast, make some noise in your car, wherever you're listening to it. Make some noise for MK. Here we go, running on stage. The crowd is cheering. Hey, please have a seat. Have a seat. Have a standing ovation, MK.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
This is great. How are you doing? Are you ready to conquer climate change?
We're going to do it. We're going to do it today, and we're going to do it together. That's always been my dream. I was like, I need Esteban here to help me conquer climate change.
I'm so sorry that it's taken this long, just on behalf of everyone.
If only we'd have met up 20 years ago. We could have done this. We could have gotten this out of the way a long time ago.
Yeah. Climate change just exists, and people are like, when are MK and Esteban going to get into a room and record a really quick podcast?
Exactly.
All right, MK, we start every episode with headlines. I'll just read some headlines and then we'll talk about them. This is exciting. California just voted to outlaw the sale of new gas-powered lawnmowers, leaf blowers, and chainsaws in as early as 2021.
I mean, I'm of the opinion that I think we should just generally outlaw leaf blowers, electric or not. I think they're a little too loud and they're a little too obnoxious, especially when my neighbors are getting a hold of them.
It's not that gas. You're like, it's the general nuisance.
It's the general noise. Is this the end of the world? It feels like it. Somebody's blowing leaves next door.
It is leaf blowing, like, feels like it takes place only at 7 a.m. You know, like they're never like 3 p.m. Yeah. It's someone wakes up in the middle of the night and it's like, too many leaves, and then just brum, 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 brum. It's really exciting. Here's the thing, okay? So it requires all small motor equipment to be zero emission, which is a big news in the rake community.
It's huge. People raking, they're thrilled. All those rake heads out there.
Shout out to the rake heads listening to the show. I feel like rakes are going to be like QR codes, and all of a sudden people are like, "Oh, I don't use this," and then they're going to become very relevant.
I thought you were going to say we're getting a rake at every meal we sit down at now. It's like they're just at the table.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have leaf blowers anymore, so you got a rake to help pay for dinner.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you guys want to come over for dinner? Get here at 5. We'll rake, and we'll eat at 7. What's the painting? Is it American Gothic? You like art with a man holding a rake?
He's holding a pitchfork, I think, right? But you know what else I remembered? One time I think I saw an internet video that somebody had a rake and they had like little hot dogs on each of the like points of the rake, and that's how they were grilling hot dogs. So you could actually do a rake and bake, like a rake and dinner.
A rake and bake.
A rake and bake.
You know what? You can't do that with gas-powered leaf blowers. Okay, so people are excited because it feels like a small law, right? But small laws lead to big laws. It's like when you're like, I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to stop eating sugar in the mornings. But here's the truth. The science is insane. Machinery like this, we're talking leaf blowers and lawnmowers, creates as much smog causing pollution in California as passenger cars.
That's insane.
It is insane. It's so insane that the person who wrote the legislation, Assemblyman Mark Berman, he's up in Menlo Park.
Oh, I love Mark.
Oh, such a good guy, Mark.
This is a very pro Mark Berman podcast. I don't know much about him besides this one law, so I hope we're on the right side of history, but I would assume so, because this is a good law.
He wrote one thing, and we're like, Mark Berman for life. He has this quote. You're going to love it. How Mark is this quote? Listen to how Mark this is.
I'm excited.
He goes, quote, "It's amazing how people react when they learn how much this equipment pollutes." Ugh.
Mark.
Speaking of amazing.
Oh, he is sharp. He's one sharp fella.
But it's true. So we, all we were trying to do is live up to Mark's standards. He's tough, but he's fair. And he says it's amazing when people react. So, MK, I'm going to give you some real statistics, and I need you to react to them, okay?
Okay.
A 2011 study found that gas-powered leaf blower spews out more pollution than a 6,200-pound Ford F-150 SVT Raptor.
Holy mackerel, that's a lot of pollution. Can you believe that? Wow.
There's that, quote, amazing response, reaction. There it is. Isn't that insane?
I mean, that is actually insane.
Yeah. A half hour of yard work is the same as taking a 3,900-mile drive from Texas to Alaska in a Ford F-150 Raptor.
Ayuga, what? I'm here for the reaction.
2 for 2.
2 for 2.
Incredible. Mark is going to love these reactions.
Mark's on board. That's all that matters to me.
That's so much for leaf blowers and lawnmowers.
It's so much.
It's absolutely insane.
I mean, really, I'm surprised it hasn't been addressed sooner. If these machines are really producing this, because a lot of people are actually conscious about the CO2 emissions that their car are making, but nobody's really thinking about this smaller equipment. And it seems like it's so important.
Yeah. I think a lot of people like their lawnmowers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Lawnmower culture is a big thing. I'm from the South, and my dad, I'm pretty sure he wants to leave the family to be with a zero-turn lawnmower. He loves that thing more. He's literally cutting us out of his life. All right, there we go.
Zero turn is pretty impressive. Is that the one?
Yeah, he's spinning out of control. All right, there we go.
All right, here we go.
It's all lawnmower humor for the rest of the podcast.
Listen, you know who's not going to like this part? The rake heads. We gave them
They're
a shout out earlier.
Yeah, they are.
And they're like, why are you now talking lawnmower?
We have fallen from grace in the rake community.
All right, another headline. China is planning this massive new clean energy project in the Chinese desert. It's an initiative that is at least twice the size of the next largest planned global development. This comes as China and the rest of the world really ramp up their pace of transition to carbon neutrality. It's this site, it's got solar and wind. It's just making all this renewable energy. And it's more than twice the size of the next largest planned development, which just feels almost like an annoying flex. Like, it's too much.
I mean, I'm on board for big, bold initiatives, but also it's like, we don't need you to brag that much, all right?
Yeah. It's the person who not only gets in shape, but they run a marathon.
Right.
And you're like,
can you bring it down to a 7, please?
Yeah.
All right.
A 6-pack is enough, Jeremy. You don't need to do this.
Exactly.
So the area is big, right? It's half the size of Belgium, which would be so impressive if I knew how big Belgium was.
I mean, I feel like I kind of know Belgium, but I don't really know Belgium. It's a very confusing metric.
Part of me is like, smaller than France? Question mark.
It's like saying, oh yeah, it's the same size as 45,000 horses. How? Okay.
Yeah, you're like, I think that's good.
That seems like a big area, but why are we using that metric?
So there are a lot of global super projects, these really big projects happening in the world of renewable energy. But here's the thing, we don't need something the scale of Belgium to make a difference. MK, today, we're talking about where we, people like you and I, can start making a difference in climate change and clean energy. And we're going to get to that in the next segment. Okay, today we're playing a game called Venn Diagram, which is a name I should have had a better name for.
Yeah,
but
did you come up with that yourself, Esteban?
It took me so long to think of Venn diagram as the name that we would play. And you're not going to believe that there's a Venn diagram, and that is the premise of the game.
Golly.
Today we're talking about this Venn diagram of what brings you joy, what you're good at, and what work needs to be done. That's how we're thinking about it. But before we get into that, we're going to think about Venn diagrams. And this is true. I have a random word generator, and we're going to try to do our own Venn diagram and find the intersection of 3 random words. It's a competition between you and I. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
And
I'm nervous that this isn't going to go well. And I'm very competitive.
Yeah. Okay, for the Venn diagram crown, here's a go. I'm clicking generate random words. Here are the 3 words. Land, squash, exhibition.
It's easy. County fair.
Yeah, that's really good.
It's like an exhibition, right? And then you're growing your own squash, so it's like a county fair squash show.
There ain't no squash like a county fair squash. It is delicious.
I've been saying that for years.
That was really good. So land squash exhibition, Venn diagram, county fair. Here's another generate random words. Here we go. 3 random words are stun. Okay, this has secretion. I'm gonna find a new.
Let's find it.
Let's find a new.
I know. I got one. Squash, secretion, and the last word is butt.
Say no more. A county fair again. I don't know what your county fairs are like. Okay, here we go. Clicking. The 3 words are refuse, publicity, and angle.
That's like a politician getting some bad press, and he's looking for a better angle, and he's refusing the publicity.
Yeah,
not Mark Berman.
No, he wouldn't get bad press. He would never.
He would never.
And if he did, he would own it. He'd step up to the mic.
He'd step up. He'd get ahead of it.
I wish we knew anything.
I literally don't know anything. So. The only thing I know is I think I like him because the M in my name also stands for Mark.
Is that real?
Well, my name's Marcus. Yeah.
Marcus. What's the K?
Kyle. Marcus Kyle.
MK. I think I've known you like 8 years.
Yeah.
I have never
known what MK stands for.
I also didn't ask, which feels like a blind spot for me.
Who has the time?
Who's got the time? All right, let's do one last one. Random word generator. We're finding 3 random words. Here we go. Click, trip, sausage, gain.
Oh, I mean, that's Oktoberfest. I'm going on a trip. I'm eating a lot of sausage, and I'm gaining weight.
Wow, you're good at like the county fair, October. You're like events.
Everything goes to like food and event based. It's like, where can I eat in the next place? I was also the guy that was like, we need to get hot dogs on rakes.
Yeah, to give context, my Venn diagram, is rakes, hot dogs, and then great ideas. Okay, so the theme of this episode is thinking about how we can all make a difference in terms of climate change and clean energy. How we can take meaningful steps in creating a better world. Right, so when we talk climate change, clean energy, it's like, yes, we need to recycle. Yes, we need to do these different things. But now we're inviting people to think, hey, absolutely, there's things that need to get done. But let's also think about what brings you joy and what you're good at. And in the middle of that, in the middle of this beautiful Venn diagram, is what you should be doing. What you can do in your world to change your little corner of the world.
And this is all relating to climate change and environmental, right?
Well, totally. I think it can extend beyond that. Like, it just is behavioral science. MK, and you're actually going to fill this out. Mm-hmm. And we also haven't talked about this before the show. We're doing it live. I have no idea what's going on. I did not agree to the show.
How did I get here?
Okay, so again, what sort of scientists say, which makes sense, is sometimes we have goals and sometimes we have like these selfless goals where we feel like we need to do certain things. And what happens is that we don't persist in them, right? Like, if I feel like I need to do a thing, but I don't know how it sort of benefits me and it doesn't make me happy, I'm not going to do the thing, right? So even if I know something's important, I need other reasons to be motivated to do it. So this beautiful Venn diagram of it was originally created by Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth, is what's something that brings you joy? What's something that like makes you happy, that you're like, this is something that I just like? What's something that you're good at, some special skills that you're like, I also feel competent when I'm doing this. It's not totally out of my depth. This makes sense. And the third one is something that we've talked about a lot, but now we're trying to put into this Venn diagram, is like, what is work that needs to get done? Right, so it's like, you and I are not going to build a solar farm the size of Belgium.
Yeah.
Or we might, because we don't know how big Belgium is.
We could. It's maybe not that big.
We could easily build it later this afternoon. Yeah, so when you think, MK, in terms of climate change, things like that, what's something that sort of stands out that's like, this is important work, right? We got to do this for the planet, but also it brings you joy. Also, you're like good at it, like you just want to do it, right? You're good at it, you want to do it. Anything stick out in the middle of this Venn diagram for you?
As I get older, I'm really interested in the natural environment and like plants and growing things and trees and stuff like that. And so I would say, honestly, planting trees is something I've kind of gotten. I did it I was living with my parents for a little while during the pandemic, and they have some property in Texas, and I was like, oh, we need to plant some trees on here. But it's interesting because like the way it brings me joy is it's something I get to do with my family and something that we did together. And as those trees grow, I'll still have these memories and know that this is something that I did with my parents, right? It's also a solution and so important for climate change, at least in my opinion, that we plant more trees. Deforestation's a big issue on the planet, and trees capture a lot of carbon, and doing that naturally is a great way. You know, obviously you have to be conscious of like water and how you're growing trees and things like that and making sure they're sustainable. But I guess those two things combined with, my passion of plants and growing things in the natural environment to create a really cool thing.
I love that. That's such a great example. Like literally on your parents' place.
Right.
You can
we planted 20 trees last year.
You planted 20 trees?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. This whole time.
Yeah.
It took us this long.
I'm a tree nerd. I know.
Yeah,
I'm a Canadian/tree nerd.
This whole time.
Yeah.
That is so good. That's so clearly you're good at that one circle. Clearly that brings you joy. Look, you're lighting up another circle, and clearly it is work that needs to be doing. This podcast is all about thinking about climate change, making some silly jokes, but it's also trying to do things quickly, right? We don't have that much time. So I want to know what you learned, but I want to know it. And this is a challenge. I'm going to count on my fingers. I want to know what you learned in 5 words or less. What are things that you're going to carry with you moving from this podcast?
Small machinery pollutes big time.
That was so good.
It's pretty good, right?
Yeah, that was immediate.
I was worried it was going to be like 6 or 7 words. You saw me spelling it out with my fingers. So it's too good.
Big time. That's really good. Not only is that an interesting statistic, it's also like some of the paradigm shifts about how we think about climate change, right? It's not just drive less. Like there's a lot of factors to it. Right. It's not just whatever, eat less meat. Right. It can also be things like plant trees, or it can also be things like make sure that the U.S. is doing these clean energy projects the size of Belgium.
Right.
And the challenge is this: if you are listening, check out the Venn diagram from Generation 180, and there, here's the challenge: spend a few minutes creating your own. This might sound like a little bit easy, but I think it is powerful. I also think just sitting down and like reflecting is wonderful. And I think, the science is there to suggest that the way that we think about goals in this Venn diagram sort of way and paradigm is really, really big. It's a good way to think about goals in that way. Okay, thanks for being on the show. We appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the show. This has been Comedians Conquering Climate Change, a project of Generation 180. The world is a stage and we're just trying to save it. Generation 180 is a clean energy nonprofit inspiring and equipping people to take action on clean energy. You can find out more at generation180.org. This podcast is produced and edited by Matt Turner. A special thank you, an enormous thank you, to MK Paulsen, aka Plant Daddy. You can follow him at MK Paulsen. He's got a phenomenal Twitter that I follow and laugh at all the time. And also, check out Inside Jokes on Amazon Prime. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Esteban Gast.